Robert Downey Jr. returning to Marvel Studios as Victor Von Doom has the potential to be something absolutely incredible. And at the same time, it has the potential to ruin Doctor Doom forever. So while we wait to see how this plays out, the Russo Brothers revealed to us how they had to talk to Robert Downey Jr. and convince him to return instead of Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige. He wanted nothing to do with it.
So this report comes at us courtesy of The Hollywood Reporter, who got to interview Joe and Anthony Russo about their return to Marvel Studios, of course, why they returned, the ideas behind it, and everything surrounding that decision that literally, changed the perception of the MCU for better or for worse last summer, that made them seem desperate, that did all these things. Again, I talked about this in another video. Shortly after that, I talked about how bringing back Robert Downey Jr. was a desperation move. And I want to be clear about this. I still believe it is. I'm not changing my tune on that. It's a smart move, but it's a desperation move. We all know this. Well, the Russo brothers have a big sit-down interview with The Hollywood Reporter, and they talk a little bit about the start of the MCU with Iron Man. And for us to get to what they're talking about, we really got to talk about everything pretty much from the beginning. So this is going to be a bit of a longer video, if you will. Now, I know some of you love the shorter videos, 3 to 4 minutes, get to the point. Some people love the longer videos. So if you like the shorter ones, sorry, this is a longer one. Fast forward wherever, I don't know, probably like 5 minutes, 6 minutes into this, and you'll get to the part you want. But let's talk about the start of the MCU. The Russo brothers talked about Robert Downey Jr. being cast as Iron Man, and how there was a lot of doubt online. Make no mistake about it, there was. And they were obviously just watching this unfold as fans, and they were like, yeah, that's a great casting. Imagine if we ever got to work with him and things like that. And then they talk a little bit about the success of Iron Man, and then finally getting the opportunity to direct the film with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And they've talked about how they were always looked down upon. Comedy directors, Captain America's doomed, bring back Joe Johnston. And by that time, revisionist Marvel history was already starting. People didn't like the first Captain America. A lot of people still put the first Avenger in their bottom 10 on MCU lists, right? But when they were announced, there was already revisionist history claiming these guys are going to ruin it. Joe Johnston was perfect. That first film is going to be a classic. The Winter Soldier isn't. They proved what they could do with Winter Soldier. Then they talk about getting to work with Robert Downey Jr. on Civil War and building out a relationship with him and doing so much to work with him, and how it was like to get to end the Iron Man arc with Avengers Infinity War leading to Endgame, that final moment, and Robert Downey Jr. was done. And they were as well. And they talk about how they all legitimately thought that they were done. But then this is where the story really starts in relation to the new stuff that we're talking about. So they said that originally, when the conversation was brought up by Kevin Feige to bring them back into Marvel Studios, to bring them back into the fold, they said, well, we're not doing Kang anymore because obvious reasons, Jonathan Majors getting fired and all this. We're doing Doctor Doom, right? And that's when they pitched Kevin Feige their idea. And here's what Joe and Anthony Russo said. This is specifically Anthony Russo. He said, and I quote, "We pitched Kevin on the idea, and Kevin goes, all right, I buy it. Now you guys got to get Downey." And I was like, what do you mean we got to get Downey? Aren't you coming? And he didn't. End quote. So this reveals to us that the Russos were the ones that said, here's our story with Doctor Doom. Also, yeah, Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doom. And Kevin was like, you're on your own. He's not coming back. And reports have suggested they tried to get him back, but he turned them down. And this was sort of confirmed. But nonetheless, Joe Russo then adds, and I quote, "Downey was sitting down on a lounge, sprayed out like a knife, on the roof of his office in Venice. And I show up there, and we're rehearsing the pitch. and you literally pitching the biggest movie star in the world to take his giant cash cow character and convert him into a villain. End quote. And they talk a little bit more about how it's like to sit down with Robert Downey Jr. and talk to him. And they talk about how, to Robert Downey Jr.'s credit, he understood what they were going for and how pitching Doctor Doom to him made sense to him, and how he then started creatively working with them, you know, tossing around ideas for the character, tossing around where the character could go, reframing the character in context of the MCU. And that's when they say they kind of knew that they had him locked in. And Kevin Feige was super supportive of all the decisions and things that they were talking about, the changes, how they were approaching it. And also they reflected on how they were talking to him in regards to playing the villain in Captain America the Winter Soldier, and how he was open to that, and how this was like another stab at that type of character. And this honestly is really great to hear in terms of not just that, yeah, we convinced them, but also the creative process behind it, you know? Like, think about that monumental task, you know? Think about having to pitch this great idea for your return to Marvel Studios. And they're like, yeah, sure, that's great. Yeah, okay, we love it. You're going to do Doctor Doom. Now you got to convince the actor yourself, and I'll be somewhat behind you, and I'll come in and we'll figure this out. You know, Marvel Studios has had these moments go down to the wire multiple times. Like Kevin Feige recalling how they got the Spider-Man deal done literally as they were starting the production of Civil War, you know? Like, it's that type of moment. And something interesting that Joe and Anthony Russo both said is that this is definitely a huge, lucrative deal for both Avengers films. And not just for them, but also for Robert. I clearly think that they're talking about the fact that the rumors of their payday is true, and also Robert's payday is true. Between them three, they're going to make like $100 million. You know, like, a giant chunk of the budget is already just these three being factored in. And that's honestly crazy. But hey, that's how Hollywood works, right? They're betting big on them bringing butts into seats and making this a multi-billion-dollar hit. Potentially the first $3 billion film. So we'll see if they can do it. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will. And if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.